Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into some sources that really show how fast crypto adoption is moving, and they also spotlight a few specific projects grabbing attention right now.
That's right. And there's definitely this sense of global momentum building. Our sources point specifically to governments like Panama really leaning into digital assets.
Leaning all the way in, one source said.
Yeah, which seems to be speeding things up in Latin America, and that has ripple effects, right?
Yep.
But it's happening against this backdrop of, well, market volatility.
Right. The sources mentioned Bitcoin getting close to 104K, but also, what was it, over $600 million in liquidations? Kind of wild swings.
Exactly. So lots going on.
Okay, so let's try and unpack this for you. Our mission here is really to sort of cut through that noise and see what these sources are actually emphasizing about key players like Qubetics, Avalanche, and VEChain.
And especially how they might relate to potential opportunities, maybe looking ahead to pre-sales in 2025.
Yeah, and also, where does Panama's move fit into all this? That seems pretty significant.
It does. And the core question these specific sources seem to be wrestling with is, with all these developments, which projects really stand out, especially if you're looking at that early stage pre-sales space for next year.
And they definitely come at it from different angles, don't they? We've got one source talking infrastructure disruption with Qubetics.
Then another focusing on VEChain's upgrades for enterprise utility.
And the third looking at Avalanche from a technical price perspective.
It's a really interesting mix to compare.
So starting with that bigger picture, that Panama point, one source really emphasizes this isn't just a small step. They're leaning all the way into crypto.
Yeah, presented as a major push, accelerating adoption across the board in Latin America, public sector, private sector.
And that level of government buy-in for a whole country, it feels like it could be a real turning point for how crypto integrates into, well, national economy.
Absolutely. It really highlights that accelerating adoption theme we keep seeing. So, okay, let's dig into the projects, starting with Qubetics. How is that presented in the source material?
Well, the focus seems to be on disrupting core internet infrastructure. They frame it as more than just another token project.
Right, and the main things they highlight are its decentralized VPN, the DVPN, and a Web3 aggregator.
Okay, so the DVPN, what's the purpose there according to the source?
It's about secure, censorship-resistant access, so bypassing those traditional central servers.
Which makes sense for privacy-focused users or maybe institutions needing more secure network access.
Exactly. And the source argues that demand for this kind of thing is growing. They point to, concerns about cyber attacks rising, more surveillance, even regulatory hurdles making traditional systems tricky.
And they give some examples, right, to make it more concrete.
Yeah, like a digital artist managing NFTs across different chains, maybe in a place with internet restrictions. Or think about a healthcare provider dealing with really strict data rules.
Okay, I see. And the tech itself, how does the DVPN work?
Well, it encrypts your traffic, routes it through this distributed network of nodes, basically masking where you are, where you're going, what you're doing online.
And the claim is it does this without sacrificing performance.
That's the claim, yeah. And another key piece they highlight is built-in cross-chain interoperability. So working smoothly across major chains like Ethereum, Solana.
Or breaking down those walls between different crypto ecosystems.
Right, which is often a big pain point.
And what about the Web3 aggregator piece you mentioned?
That's described as sort of the layer where that DVPN is natively integrated. It's designed to be programmable, something developers can build on.
So it's presented as more of a foundational layer for Web3 usability, not just a single tool.
That's the argument, yes.
Yeah.
Engineering a base layer.
Okay, so that's the utility angle.
Yeah.
But the sources also spend quite a bit of time on the Qubetics presale momentum.
They do. They state it's currently in stage 37, token price at 0.3370.
And there's a specific structure to this presale.
Yes, designed for growth. Each stage is 7 days long, and there's a programmed 10% price increase every Sunday at midnight.
Ah, so it creates this predictable upward movement during the presale itself.
Kind of builds in momentum, yeah. And the numbers cited are pretty substantial for a presale.
What were they again? Over 500 million tokens.
Over 514 million TICS tokens reportedly sold. That translates, according to the source, to over $17.6 million raised.
Wow. And from how many holders?
Over 27,400 unique holders cited.
That's a significant raise. The source probably presents that as strong market interest.
Absolutely. And they go further, providing explicit potential ROI examples. These are based on a $100 investment at the current presale price, projecting potential future values.
Okay, well, like what?
Well, the source suggests if the token hits $1 after launch, that $100 might become over $196.
Okay.
If it hits $5, potentially over $1,400. At $10, nearly $3,000. And if it reached $15, maybe over $4,400.
Whoa. Okay, those are very specific projections they're pulling directly from the source material.
They are. And they also note the expected mainnet launch timeline,
Which is?
Q2 2025.
Okay, so next year.
Right. And the source basically connects all these dots. The VPN aggregator utility, the big raise amount, those specific ROI examples, the 2025 timeline.
To conclude that Qubetics is presented as, what was the phrase? Potentially the best crypto presale to buy for 2025.
According to their analysis, yes. That's the conclusion presented in that particular source.
All right, let's shift gears then. From that early stage project to something more established but evolving, VEChain. Our sources also flag a big upgrade coming there.
Yeah, the Galactica protocol is set to launch on the mainnet pretty soon, July 1st, according to one source, TradingView.
And the goal with Galactica?
It's about unlocking new functionality, expanding VeChain's utility, especially in areas like compliance, enterprise tokenization, managing decentralized data.
So really cementing their position in that Web3 enterprise space. They've been there, but this sounds like a level up.
It does seem geared towards more complex, regulated uses. Galactica apparently introduces multi-layered verification systems for data on the chain.
Meaning, like, more robust checks.
Kind of. Think customizable checks ensuring data meets specific standards, which, as the source points out, is really crucial for industries like healthcare, complex supply chains, environmental reporting.
Places where data integrity and following the rules are absolutely key.
Exactly. But interestingly, the source notes the market reaction so far has been kind of muted.
Really? Trading flat, they said.
Pretty much. Which, according to the source's take, suggests maybe the potential upside is already priced in.
Or maybe the market's just waiting to see how it actually rolls out, the integrations, the impact.
Could be, waiting for more clarity. Either way, it's positioned as a major technical and strategic step for VEChain.
Okay, so we've got infrastructure, enterprise upgrades. Now, the sources also look at things through a technical lens, specifically for Avalanche AVX.
Right. One piece of analysis, citing Tron Weekly, suggests AVX is consolidating right now, trading in a tighter range.
And this pattern looks like something specific.
It resembles what analysts call a bull flag, which is often seen as a potential continuation pattern.
Meaning, after a strong move up, this consolidation might just be a pause before another move up?
That's the idea behind the pattern, yeah. And if it plays out like some analysts cited suggest.
Then what? What's the potential upside mentioned?
The source notes they're talking about a potential 300% price rally if there's a breakout from this pattern.
Wow. And they mentioned a resistance level to watch?
Yeah, initial resistance noted near $45, a level where selling might kick in.
But there are positive signs, too.
The analysis highlights things like the price being above key moving averages, which is generally bullish, consistent volume, suggesting interest is still there.
Okay.
And they mentioned a neutral RSI, that's the relative strength index, a momentum indicator. Neutral suggests it's not overbought, so there's potentially room to run higher.
There's always a catch with technical patterns, right?
Always. The analysts cited also warn that if AVX fails to hold the lower support of this flag pattern, it could lead to a downside move, retesting lower prices.
Makes sense. So it's a setup to watch maybe for a Q3 move if the trend holds?
That's how the source frames it, yes,
Yeah.
setting up for a potentially robust Q3.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together based on what these sources are emphasizing. We've got three really different angles here.
We do. You've got VeChain focusing on strengthening its enterprise game with that big Galactica upgrade.
Then Avalanche, viewed through that technical analysis lens, the bull flag, the potential rally, but also the risks if the pattern breaks down.
And then Qubetics, which the sources really focus on as a live presale opportunity.
Right, highlighting that specific infrastructure utility at the DVPN, the aggregator, but also pairing it with those concrete presale numbers.
The big raise, the holder count, those explicit ROI examples they laid out.
And that Q2 2025 mainnet target.
Yeah, and the source focusing on Qubetics ties all that together to argue that this combination makes it, in their view, a particularly strong contender for that best crypto presale to buy for 2025 label.
It really gives you, the listener, different ways to look at the market, doesn't it? From broad national adoption trends like Panama,
To established players upgrading like VeChain, technical setups like Avalanche, and these early stage infrastructure plays like Qubetics.
Now, before we wrap up, it's really, really crucial. We mentioned the context provided in the sources themselves, especially regarding Qubetics.
Absolutely. The source material is quite clear that the information on Qubetics was part of sponsored content, a press release, basically.
Meaning it was intended solely for promotional purposes. That's explicitly stated.
Yes, and based only on what the source itself says, it advises readers to be cautious, to do their own thorough research before making any moves.
Right. And the publisher mentioned, CryptoFront News, is explicitly stated as not being responsible for any losses related to that content.
So, just to be super clear for everyone listening,
Mm.
we're reporting the information and disclaimers from the source. This isn't financial advice from us.
Not at all. Just relaying what's presented in the material we analyzed.
Exactly.
Okay. So here's a final thought for you to maybe mull over. As this market keeps evolving and adoption clearly accelerates, you see things like Panama's big move. How do you weigh the different types of projects out there? How do you compare those enhancing established enterprise solutions versus those trying to build completely new layers of infrastructure utility, especially when you're looking at early stage things like pre-sales?
It's a great question to consider as you navigate this space. Something to think about.